It's in my headset. Oh, you already started it.
Yeah.
That's weird.
What's up?
When I joined the channel, it was on to where I was just talking about my headset,
Oh,
and then it started the intro.
no problem. Um, Wind blows, rained on, Bentley barley grass. You make me narrow path indeed. Joso. Welcome everybody to another episode of Thought Process. My name is Marco, and I'm here today with Greg. Today's episode is all about jobs and particularly jobs that I've had in the past. Some lessons that we've learned so far. Um, and yeah, let's get right into it. Since Greg's work history has been a little shorter than mine, I think we should start with you. Um, yeah, because
It's
you started working at the age of 14, 16.
16, I think.
We were still in high school, and I
Yeah,
remember. I think you were my only friend who had a job back then.
because I had that privilege, you know.
What privilege?
Exactly. None. Not a single one. I missed. I had to go to work instead of doing everything else.
Yeah. Um, well, why don't you tell everybody? I know we talked about it a little bit before in the podcast, but why don't you tell everyone what kind of restaurant you worked in?
I worked in a family-owned restaurant. Just a small. I don't know. They call it so many different things over the years. They call it a roadhouse. They call it a southern restaurant. They called it a. They never really wanted it to be a barbecue restaurant, but it is a
Mm-hmm.
barbecue restaurant just because roadhouses and southern restaurants and all that is barbecue. Uh, and I started off as a busboy and just whatever made more money with less work, I started doing. And then eventually I started having to do more work to get more money.
That's classic.
Because I'm not even kidding. There's a job. There's a busboy that you can do at a younger age, and then there's this one position called expediter. And what that person does is they run food from the window to the table, and most of those shifts are like 2-hour shifts, so they don't need you in the slow times. So you get to go in later in the morning or later at night, and you get to leave earlier in the morning and earlier at night. So it's like you don't go in for any of the BS, and you made tips, so it was worth it to just get in and get out.
Yeah, especially at that age,
Yeah, you didn't have to deal with anything.
right?
You brought food to the table. If it was wrong, you'd be like, "Oh, let me go get your server." I
Oh
don't
man.
know. uh, uh, I worked in that same restaurant. I've actually always worked in that restaurant. Um, but over over the years, I worked with the same people. It was just being in a different position. I mean, there wasn't much difference. Either I was running food, or I was cleaning a table, or I was taking an order. It's all really kind of the same thing.
Right.
Kind of
And
funny to
and
see.
and you learned how to move up the ladder fairly quick.
Not really. I mean, you can't really be a server until you're 18 because there's there was beer and wine.
Mm-hmm.
which is I still think that's kind of weird to be able to serve beer and wine at 18 is fine, but you can't drink it. I don't get it.
Yeah.
You should have to be 21 to serve it. Same reason why you can't buy it at a store.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
But who knows? But yeah, once I turned 18, I became a server pretty much right away. And I did not like being a server at first. Not not at all, dude. Every time I walked into that building, what you do when you first get there is you do your wraps. So you make all your silverware for the night. And uh while you're sitting there, you look around, see like if there's anyone you know who's there, and like what kind of like the layout for the night, like
Mm-hmm.
does this person look lazy? Is this stuff ready? And every single time, dude, I was so scared because you never know who's gonna walk in that door and screw your night over.
Like
Or
it just takes one client, right?
you
That's
just think
picky, who high maintenance, who doesn't know what they want, and then they blame everything on you.
it's not even that. It can be the person who knows what they want.
Uh
Because if they keep asking you, like if you go to the table and they ask you for some ranch, and then they want to refill on the drink the second time you come, and then the third time you come they accidentally drop their fork, and they're perfectly nice, that person still screwed your night over. Like walking back and forth is deadly.
and time consuming, right? I mean, you have
Yeah.
when you were a server, how many like tables were you taking care of
Uh, when the night finally like would pick up, you'd probably have like 10 tables at a time, maybe more.
at a time? Damn,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
Yeah, most places don't do that.
Oh, because
But
it was a family owned restaurant, and then you guys were how many servers? Like three,
um,
two?
when I first started serving, it depended on the day, but there were a lot more. There was usually three, and then depending on the day, there may have been four. But like when I was bussing, there was like on the slowest night, like Monday night, there was three servers, and Expo, the person who runs the food, um, two bussers, a host, and a manager. And you'd probably not even find that in the restaurant now.
Right.
Uh,
Now, what does the busser exactly do?
the busser just cleans tables, and I mean it's different in a lot of restaurants. Sometimes the busser is the dishwasher in some restaurants.
Would you say that they're like the prepper or just like they just prepare like the table to be ready for the next guest? They clear out the old dishes or whatever.
Yeah, so they'll clear off the table, they'll clean the table and the benches or seats, whatever it is, and they'll put the dishes either in the back or wherever they go.
Oh, okay.
But in some places they actually are the dishwasher, so they'll clean off the table and take the dishes and do the
Right.
dishes. But not too many places do that.
Yeah. I mean, from in my experience, I only had one restaurant job, and that was probably my second job I've ever had. I worked at Carl's Jr. for about 8 months before I completely hated it. I mean, and just like you, when you first started working, they only used me during the busy time. So let's say we were located near off like an office space plaza, bunch of offices, so people would come and eat just at lunch. We'd get a little bit of breakfast here and there, a little bit of dinner, but it was mostly lunchtime. where it got really busy. So they would have me come in from 10 a.m. to clean and get everything ready, like wipe down everything, sweep, clean the restrooms before lunch, and then um, as soon as lunch hit, they would put me on cashier. So I was taking orders, and then once we had the first wave, the second wave, and the third wave of people coming in, then I would start delivering the food to the tables, and and right after that, I had to clean again, and that was my shift. That by 2 p.m. I was gone. Like there was nothing for me to do. So from 10 to 2, it's 4 hours. They basically just brought me in to do the grunt work. Eventually, I left the place. The lady was the manager there was a little lady, man. She couldn't have been taller than 4'8", and she really had to make up for her height in other ways. Like her attitude was like a really strong attitude. She was very picky. Um, she was a little too much to bear sometimes. It was difficult working there. So I called it quits. Like one time, she's like, I want you to come in today. I wasn't on the schedule. It's not the first time she had done that. Um, I probably, I probably was in that situation for like 3, 4 times before I got fed up with it. Like on my days off, she would call me and say, "Hey, we're busy. We need you for 2 hours," and I would come in. I was naive at first. So I would come in, and then I got fed up with it. And the next thing she calls me again 8 months in, and I just said, you know what? I'm not coming in. Just I'm keeping the clothes. I'm not going there anymore. I'm not going back there anymore. I didn't return the hat. I didn't return the apron. Nothing.
And you got charged.
Maybe from my last check. I mean, by that point, dude, I did not care. I
You
did
don't
not
even
care
know if
anymore.
you got charged?
No,
That could have been like 3 shifts right there.
dude.
Ugh.
Honestly, it wasn't even worth it. Like that month, they could have kept my last check. It wasn't worth it. Um, and then after that, I never went back to restaurant. I just couldn't do it. And so I actually appreciate the servers and the people in the restaurant business because it's tough, man. Just working at Carl's Jr., like you said, sometimes you give the food, you ask, do you need anything else? You have pockets of ketchup. At Carl's Jr., you have pockets of hot sauce. You have forks and stuff, napkins in your pockets, in your apron. And they would say, no, no, we're good. And then they would, flag you down 2 seconds later. Hey, do you have a fork? Oh, hey, do you have more ketchup? I'm like, gosh darn it. I just told you like 2 minutes ago. So I know it's a lot of work. And when I go out to a restaurant, I try to be um, as best as I can when, ordering and being concise with and knowing what I want. I think that's the biggest headache that you guys get. Would you agree?
No.
Like, what's the biggest headache what's the typical customer that just, gosh, you just want to punch in the face?
It's actually been very interesting that since I've been back, I've not really run into many issues outside of someone just blatantly being rude. Like not it being my fault necessarily, like maybe like ordering them the wrong food or anything, just them just not being very nice. It changed the way I like was gonna serve, and I just grab people when they want it, and started writing things down differently, and I had less issues in the sense of getting people wrong things and stuff like that. That it's really not that bad, and then having fun, because people go in and then they're like, "Oh, I gotta serve right now. This is not gonna be fun," and so they don't even try to make any fun for themselves, which makes it boring for other people. Which means you're gonna run into a bad time.
Why don't you give me an
So,
example of how, like, what did you used to do, and then what changed?
well, I mean, I used to just go up and ask them like what they wanted, and then from there it's like, do you need anything else? Like, I'd be nice, like I'd make sure they have what they wanted, but that's it.
But and so then you changed into, what was your process? How'd you do it?
I mean, it's
You
different
started like give
because you
like
can't do it.
were you
You
like,
can't.
hey, this is our special for today. Were you more engaging, not just taking orders? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So like, I'll try to. I don't know. I just try to make jokes with people, or I'll sit down with them, or something like that. Stuff like that. I'll
And
make fun.
and and this is kind of weird because I mean, I've known you for how many years? Like 10 years now?
Hmm. Yep.
Me more than that. Like 13 years or something.
Yeah.
You know, 13, 14 years. Greg is not the type of guy to go up to a person and crack jokes. Right, Greg?
That I don't know. No.
Um, so it's interesting that at work you kind of shifted into, was it a persona or
Well,
did you
see
actually mean it?
but no. See, that's my point. There's never a reason for me to walk up to a random person. There is a reason for me to walk up to these
Okay.
people,
Yeah.
and that's why it's doable. It's like in the restaurant I'm at now has a bar. The restaurant that I was a general manager of didn't have a bar, and I had more back of house responsibilities in the sense of like ordering things and scheduling and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. So it took more of my time away from being on the floor. So
Right.
I actually, now looking back at it, I really didn't do much restaurant wise when I was a general manager.
It was just the management of, it was like
Yeah,
more of operations, right?
yeah. It was like get the operations done, and then walk around for a couple hours during the busy time, and then get more of the operations done. And I never really did much in the restaurant itself. But going back, I they have me as a manager, but it's more just I'm kind of there. Like I'm not doing any of the schedule. I like final look at things. So like if
Mm.
they do the schedule, I'll look at the schedule before they post it. Um, if they're gonna order something or try to change something, they may ask my opinion before doing it. Stuff like that.
Now, well, I was never a manager in my like early on in my work experience until
Yeah.
now. But now it's like I'm not really managing. I'm managing like two people, right?
Hmm.
So outside of that, I never had to deal with scheduling. Like, how tough was it to get a good team and schedule them at the right time according to everyone's strengths and weaknesses?
Uh, it was fine to schedule people, but what
Really?
happens is the aftermath of it. So it's like these people are all available on this Saturday coming up. So I try to keep the schedule consistent. So I put as many people in their normal shifts as possible, and then I may have to add one or two people at night. So I add the one or two people, and they're not the issue. It's this one other person who says, "Oh, I can't work that Saturday night." Okay, why didn't you say anything when I was creating this 2 weeks ago and I talked to you about it? Oh, because I didn't know about it. Okay, neither did I. Have a good day. See you Saturday. But
But
it,
in terms of like having a good team, like, did you ever have any instances where maybe the cooks didn't get along? They didn't get along with the servers
yes,
or
but
the food runners.
Yeah, but that was
How do you
that
mitigate
was.
that?
Oh, I just walk up and I say, "I'm here." It was it was different with me because I would help everyone. So people, if someone wants to talk trash about me, it's easier to talk trash to my face than it is to talk trash to someone about me, and that's how I make it. So if they get mad about something, they'll actually talk to me, or if they get mad at someone else, they'll they'll talk to their friend instead of talking to that person.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I always made everything a joke because then it's just easier to get over it.
See,
So
now that's a good lesson, man. I mean, you're serious about your work, but at the same time, you're having fun in order
yeah,
to just make things and the day go by faster, maybe easier on everybody.
yeah.
And
So
I think that's actually a good management technique that you used. Maybe you did it unconsciously, like maybe you weren't conscious that you were doing that, and you were like, maybe this is just the way it's working for me. But in if like me looking at it from an outsider's perspective, I can see that it was more effective than you just going in there and being this rude asshole type of a guy where you know you give out the schedule, like I don't care about what you have going on, like this is the schedule you have or you're out, or you guys are having issues. You never really took sides. I mean, from what you're telling me, it's how I'm perceiving it. um so I think that without you even knowing, or maybe you did it purposefully, I don't know, I think that it was a good way to manage, don't you think?
this is the other thing too. Like if I were to walk up to people and ask them, like I'll go to the kitchen and I'll say, "Is everything done?" And they'll say, "No." I'll be like, "What'd you not do?" I don't know. They didn't make the onion rings or something. Like, so I asked them, I was like, how hard is it to do the onion rings? And they'll be like, "Oh, it's hard. It takes too long." So I'll go back there and I'll make them and I'll time myself. And I'll show them the timer when I'm done. And I'll be like, "Too hard? You must suck because I did it." because because now they can't not do it.
Yeah,
They got to do it now
right.
because now by them not doing it, they're telling themselves that I'm better than they are.
Dude, but see, I'm trying to figure out, sometimes it takes people ages to figure this out. You figured it out in one job. That's what I find really interesting about it. Like some people till this day have no clue what they're doing at their job.
It's because people aren't there for fairness. Like there's a difference between fairness and it's like just if someone gets a job to clean toilets and stock shelves, but then they get upset every time they have to clean a toilet. Like you knew that that was 50% of the job.
Mm-hmm.
So like let's say if I walked up to the person who was supposed to clean toilet and said, "Hey, this toilet needs to be cleaned," and they get all upset. Like, "Look, I cleaned one of them, clean the other one, hurry up." After that, there's no more like you can't do it. Like you've never done it. You don't do it. Like why do I have to? Uh it's just people don't people don't want to show others that they can do it too or that
You
they've
mean,
done it.
so
Like
what I'm
you have
getting
to
is you're talking about leadership.
yeah.
But what I'm saying is, as an employee, when you first started, did you struggle with that too? Were there things that you didn't want to do that maybe let's say for the first couple of years you were there, you hated cleaning the restroom, like the example that you just gave. But then when you got promoted, was it like, hey, I did that, like now it's your turn to do it? Or like, how did you figure that out?
Um, I mean, half the time I usually just would still do things because I didn't want to wait for the lazy person to finally get to something. I always understood, especially in that restaurant, that the quicker something got done, the better it was for everyone. So I kind of would just do things to get it done.
Yeah.
Because I was almost always able to finish my stuff before it needed to be done. And I didn't want to, I don't know, like let's say with the bathroom. If you're gonna leave the bathroom with poops in the toilet and toilet paper hanging off the urinal and loogies in the sink, like that's definitely gonna hinder me because ain't no one want to come back to the restaurant because the restrooms are dirty.
Right.
So if I have to go and tell this person to clean it and it takes them an hour and a half to get to it, that's whoever's been here for that last hour and a half. I may not ever see again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That
I
makes
just did.
sense.
A lot of time I would just do things.
See, for me, it took it took me quite some time to figure it out. Um, yeah, I don't know. Okay, so I guess if we start from the beginning, I started working at 16, 17 as a cell phone repair guy. Like I was really good with the like tech things back then, just particularly cell phones. I knew how they worked. So my
Hmm.
sister-in-law, she hooked me up with this job where she was working in Anaheim. And I lived at the time in Santa Ana. At 16, 17, I didn't have a car yet. That was, we're talking about
Oh,
2006, 2007.
I thought the place you were working was called 1617.
No.
The way you said it.
Oh, no, no. At 16, like at the age of 16 or 17, I don't quite remember. I
Yeah.
think it was like 2006, 2007. I had to I basically cleaned the shelves at this store. I dusted everything. I mopped, I swept, I cleaned the only restroom that we had, and I took payments. Like someone came in, they wanted to pay their phone bill. I took payments, and then I would do the cell phone setups. So like if you wanted your cell phone, you wanted to change your cell phone, I'd give you a new SIM card, all of that.
Yeah.
But the one interesting thing that I found here was, well, actually, two different things. The first thing was accountability. Accountability came to me almost naturally at this place. And why do I say that? I say that because, like I said, I used to live in Santa Ana. And if you're not familiar with Orange County, Santa Ana and Anaheim, it's about 12 miles. Like the southernmost part of Santa Ana to almost the northern part of Anaheim is about 12 miles. I didn't have a car. I had to get on my bike sometimes and ride my bike all the way there. So I would take Tustin all the way down to Taft, and then Taft, it would convert itself to Ball Road, um, getting all the way to well, you remember the apartments that I lived in, right?
Mm, yeah.
In Tustin, like Santa Ana, Tustin borderline.
Yep.
Well, I had to go all the way to Disneyland. Like that's where this place was. Um, but it was like an adventure. Like it took me like an hour just to get there. I'd get there all sweaty and stuff. I'd Kind of just wash my face when before clocking in, and then I spend the whole day there. We opened at 10, we closed at 7, so that was my shift, 10 to 7 every day, during summer, and then over the weekends um, during school. So I found accountability there, just doing that every day. Um, I didn't have a choice because back then, if you wanted to go to the movies in my family, I had to have my own money. Like my mom didn't have money to give me for allowance.
Yeah.
There was nothing, so I had to make my own money since that day. And then I don't know if you recall, but I had a side hustle. I started a side hustle there. So that was my main job, cell phone salesman. And then the owner there, she did taxes, she did a bunch of different things. But then she brought in a product called Mona V. And Mona V was this bottle. It was like it was like acai. Remember the acai bottles that I used to sell?
No.
Um, you don't remember that?
No, I never saw that.
No. So basically, the acai was it was during the first wave of the acai craze. People started saying, "Oh, it cures cancer, it cures diabetes, it's full of antioxidants." It was sold this way, right? Little did I know that it was actually one of those um, pyramid scheme companies where you have to buy product, then you have to sell it, and then when you sell it, you make your money because you're selling it at a higher price, and then you have to get people under you and blah blah. You know how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the first time I had a taste of the entrepreneur spirit, and you wouldn't believe, man. Like I was going crazy. I was trying to get all my family in. I was going to meetings. I'm like, dude, I'm 16, 17. I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. I just thought, oh, it cures cancer. Like I'm giving my mom, like I was giving my mom shots of it like every morning. It was just it was kind of ridiculous, but it was fun. I got a little better at sales at that place. And then from there, I started working at the Carl's Jr. And then I was there for 8 months. Um, I didn't really like the place. I didn't like the work environment. It was, like I said, it was a little toxic. Just having mini Napoleon run the place, and well, and then that's where I got hired. I mean, you worked at the Great Indoors with me for a little bit.
Yeah.
I got hired at the Great Indoors because, well, we had a common friend at the time that worked there. Um, and so I was working at the Carl's Jr. and within the time I was thinking of quitting, I had been going day and day to day, every day, all week. Every day I worked at Carl's Jr., I would go over and ask for a job. Eventually, like 2 months later, the you know the guy cracked. He's like, okay, like we have an opening. Let's get you set up with an interview. So at this place, I did merchandise pickup. I did stocking. I unloaded the freights, receiving. I did a little bit of receiving, and man, I had a lot of fun at this place. Man, I met a lot of cool people. Um, like, what was your experience working there?
That
Because you
place
came
was.
in maybe like a year at the year when
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah. That place seemed pretty ridiculous. It was like you have you have a bunch of managers, and then you had an HR department, and then you had these security guys who
Loss prevention.
apparently owned the whole business.
That's where I met the second Napoleon.
And and then you have your bag of house people, the what were we called?
Merchandise pickup.
Yeah, the merchandise pickup.
MPU.
Yeah. And then you have your janitors, but like I never saw them outside of like the end of the night. Like I don't know where they came from or who, like they must have been like private contractors or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have your front of house salespeople who all thought they were like master salesmen and they were all some like gift from God. And then you have your managers who were kind of the same way. Like thought they were like gift from God and like they were going on vacations and stuff. I'm like, how you guys make enough money? When us back here, we're making like $5 an hour. I can barely afford a TV.
We couldn't even afford the broken TVs that they had on sale.
Right? And we're the ones stocking their areas. All they did is stand there and say, hey,
You know,
look at this.
yeah. Dude, that place...
Yeah.
That place was so for those of you who don't know what the Great Indoors was, it's actually, I think it was a branch of Sears, a higher end of Sears that focused on luxury items. I mean, everywhere. You have housewares, you have appliances, you have linens, you had electronics. You had an electronics department, lighting, plumbing, you rugs, everything for like home remodeling. Now we were serving the area of Irvine, Newport. So we had a lot of wealthy people coming in, and a lot of these items were really big priced market items. You had all the name brands there. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, they came across that way. Like, you just described most of the employees there and the managers. They thought that it was, oh, this isn't Sears. This is a high end. Like, this is just a higher end version of your, the home goods department or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, they definitely, a lot of people had that type of mentality there. And it also was a little too corporate for me. I don't know if you got that same vibe.
Yeah. Although clock in and clock out, like other employees were like screaming at you, like, hurry up, I need to clock in. Like, relax, you're standing there.
Yeah. And then sometimes that computer would freeze.
I did it on purpose so many times.
The computer.
I froze that computer so many times on purpose.
Oh,
because there was like something that everyone would be like, don't do this, it freezes the computer. And I was like, beep.
Yeah. Dude, at this place is where I think I developed the customer service skill that I have.
I didn't learn any customer service there.
No, for me, it was all about the customer. I don't know why. It was just natural for me.
The only thing I can remember about you having customer service was one day you see this person walking down the hall. So you start to walk away from me and you just start yelling at them. You can't be back here. Turn around right now. And I was like, geez, why are you so mad?
Bro, that was my territory. That hallway, that hallway was mine.
That's not customer service, bro.
Dude, I give the well, I'll give you an example. I give the loss prevention guys a big headache. Huge headache. You know how we had a belt? Like this place the warehouse had a second floor, and there was a conveyor belt where you would put the lights into the conveyor belt so they, people downstairs could get it. Well, sometimes the conveyor belt would break. So I would just run up the conveyor belt instead of running all the way back and going up. Because for merchandise pickup, It was a process where you had to get the certain item ready before a certain time, and I think it was 7 minutes. You had 7 minutes to pull an item for the customer. And then the thing is that sometimes the front, like the customer service area, was too busy to page us. They were too busy to call us. So they would sell something and then they would just send the guy back, and we had no idea. So we would get slammed. And at the time we only had like 3 people working at the back, and we're talking about receiving. So the receiving guy is not doing anything other than just processing the truck. We had one person who was usually out loading people's things, and then the other person doing stock checks. So if the customers in the floor ask for a certain item, they the salesman would call us and say, "Hey, can you check this for me?" There's our inventory system was so outdated that it was not even funny, dude. Everything was done manually. And so, or sometimes people would sell something and then we wouldn't have it in stock. And so we didn't know what to tell the customer. So if somebody bought something and they ran, they basically came all the way to the back to pick it up right away. We had 7 minutes. They would scan their ticket on a scanner at the lobby. And then we, on our SNCC or our little cell phone, it would pop up and we would have 7 minutes. If we went over 7 minutes, you could get a write up. You could get, it was really, really, there was a lot of pressure because sometimes I was there by myself. And then, so like I said, there was 3 people back there. Sometimes one person's on lunch. So we only have one person back there. You have 10 customers waiting for you. So you had me running back and forth that hall like crazy. Like I said, sometimes the conveyor belt wouldn't work, so I would just run up the conveyor belt. And then not to mention, dude, the times that we were just slow and messing around. Mm-hmm. I got written up one time because I had this we had this guy who, I'm not gonna mention any names. He wasn't such a nice guy, so we played some pranks on him. So he, we asked him like, hey, sometimes you had to ask the salesman to come take a look at a certain product. Maybe it was broken. They had to sign it off and say, yeah, it's broken. We need to return it to the company. Uh-huh. So I hid in a box, and someone had him come over. And right before he opened the box, I popped up, and I scared the living shit out of him. And that day he basically went straight to management, and I got written up for that.
What?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I got written up for that.
That's so stupid.
I had a lot of fun at that place, man. Too many stories to tell. We can always go back to it, but
I would love to see that write up. Marco in trouble for jumping out of a box and scaring someone. Like,
yeah, that was the only write up I ever got.
I wouldn't even sign that,
dude. But that place was crazy. The customers were a different level.
Dude, I didn't know. The only thing I knew how to do was like put a sticker on the new items that came in and pull items out of a truck.
Yeah.
Everything else outside of that, I never learned.
But you remember the type of clients that we got? I mean, I recall one time this guy came in to pick up a stove in a Mini Cooper.
Yeah. I remember one night we got called out to the front so we could help flip over rugs.
Yeah.
And then it was like right at closing, and we were flipping a bunch of rugs, and then the guy was like, nah, I'm good, thanks, bye.
Yeah, and you have to remember, like, people probably can't even comprehend how difficult it is to, you have a stack of, let's say it's like 50 rugs, and you have to flip them 3/4 of the way so that you can get to the very bottom of it, of that stack.
Yeah.
So after, how many, let's say we went through 45 rugs, and then the guy's like, you know what? Nah, we don't want this. We spent like an hour there just flipping through rugs, and then we have to put them back. And those, oh man, fun times. So from there, I think it was the work ethic that I developed, man. I developed some good work ethic there. And thinking outside the box when it came to loading things, it was like playing Tetris with people's cars. Like that's one part that I really, really enjoyed at that place.
I don't think I learned anything there.
No?
No.
Oh man, dude. Like I remember being the only guy at the back sometimes. And I had items like a built-in refrigerator that I had to get from the back on a pallet jack by myself, bring it out, and then have the client help me load it into their car.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. It was chaos. But I learned how to work under pressure there. Right before we started closing the store down, because they obviously they weren't doing too good. I had this client. They came in. Basically, we were doing liquidation on everything. We were selling everything. And the guy comes in. He said, hey, I want those lights, the industrial lights that the warehouse had. And I said, oh, those aren't for sale. He's like, what do you mean they're not for sale? You guys are selling everything. I want the lights. I said, well, they're not for sale. I don't know what to tell you. Like, we can't sell those. So the guy starts getting rowdy. He starts getting upset. He says, call your manager. I'm like, I'm not going to call my manager because that's not for sale. Like you can pick anything else in the store. That specifically is not for sale. He's like, you know what? You're being racist. You being this, you're being that. He's like, you don't want to help me. And then he gets in my face. And then he's yelling at me. He's like almost spitting at me. Like, when people are just talking so loud that their saliva is going everywhere. It'd be like the worst right now with the coronavirus. But I have this guy yelling at me, like barking at my face. And the receiver, a good friend of mine, his name is Hector. You remember Hector? He comes in. He looked like King Leonidas back then. He had this beard, looked like King Leonidas. He comes out. He's like, hey, don't talk to him like that. And he slapped the receipt out of the guy's hand. And the guy gets all pissed. Now he pushes me. He pushes him. And then he starts getting like very altered. He gets really angry. And then our supervisor just happens to walk out. And the guy was bald, tattoos, with a goatee. And he has like a blade. One of those like unpacking blades that you use for boxes, like a box cutter.
Yeah.
So now the guy is scared. He's like, oh, you guys are going to jump me? And then our manager comes out. Well, it's not better because he's bald. He's got a goatee. He looks like a straight up OG. The guy is now like saying, I'm going to sue you guys. You guys are gonna, it's a gangbang. Like it was crazy. So eventually we had to just let him, they had to escort him out. People, like all the managers were coming up to me. They're like, hey, stay off the floor. No, don't go. He's still out on the floor. He's going to go buy things. Don't do it. I'll have the supervisor go handle it. Dude, I was so, my blood was boiling, but I stayed calm. I didn't say anything. I said nothing. Like the guy was just getting altered just by himself. Like I didn't say anything. And yeah, man. I mean, those experiences, man, those were priceless. Because working under that pressure, like now, I feel like I can handle anything, dude. When it comes to people,
Yeah.
um, so that place closed. Went to Home Depot. Oh, actually, no, I did parking. I did parking for a little bit. I was a parking attendant, dude. That was the most boring job in the world, man. Imagine sitting in a little booth for 8 hours a day, not having anything to do. It would get busy
Yeah.
during lunch, but outside of that, how boring do you think that was, man? Just wanted to shoot myself every day. Yeah, that was a
Sit there on your phone all day.
yeah. And then you have to go back and think about the technology that we had back then. We had the Apple the what was it called? The iPod 1.
Oh, okay.
So, you couldn't even get Wi-Fi on the thing. It was crazy. Nothing
Yeah.
to do. I really hated that place. I quit from there. I went to do security. I was security for a company called Staff Pro. If you were to take all of life's rejects and bunch them and put them in one company, that was Staff Pro.
Don't you mean Walmart?
No, dude, Walmart was better, dude. Walmart had better employees than we did.
That's what I don't understand because it's technically like a security group, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that's what I never understood. How can you have a security group who's not allowed to touch anyone? Like, what do they do? They just stand there and look at you?
I don't honestly. I don't know what the psychology behind it is. I don't know if it
That's
was
what it
like
is.
just having people there, like in a hat, giving you like a little badge saying
Well,
I'm security. I have
security knows that not enough is going to happen, that we need enough real security. So now we can hire these pointless people to stand around and to tell us when something's actually going to happen, and then the real security can come over. That's really what it is.
yeah. Well, we did it for events, so we didn't have other securities. We had actual like just police officers. So we
Yeah,
were just like basically to observe and report.
yeah.
You know, they gave you a walkie, they gave you a hat, your little, you had to wear khakis. It was one of those things, and like I said, it was like a second chance program. It was all like temps. Some people were felons. I remember talking to some felons. I remember talking to people who were criminals.
One
Some
of
of
my
them who were
bosses
good.
tried to do that.
They did what?
Start like hiring people who deserve chances and stuff like that.
Uh
Well, at
huh.
least my boss at the time thought that they deserved second chances, where they definitely didn't.
Yeah, some
Like,
people definitely. I was questionable. It was questionable.
yeah, and it's crazy, like how looking back at it, that all those decisions led up to where the restaurant's at now. But
Yeah. I mean, you never would have really known what would have happened. I mean, I met some good people. I have
yeah,
to be honest. I met some good people. But when I met other people who they were just there to get into concerts. They
yeah,
would bring in their stash. They'd bring a joint. They'd bring a flask. They'd be like getting high and getting drunk, just standing there. They getting paid. They were getting paid for it. I remember that. There were instances where even the security guys were selling drugs. I remember that. I walked around that. It was crazy. We did this particular one at the Irvine Amphitheater. Now it's gone, but
hmm
when it was the Irvine Amphitheater back then, I think it was like the West Coast takeover. So you had like Snoop Dogg and like all these people. Well, this was my one of my first shows that I ever did security for. We had thousands of people show up. Thousands. The amphitheater was located on the outskirts of Irvine, close to a highway. So we had people going like hiking a path into the mountain and literally running and jumping over in numbers. It was like stampedes of people. And at that time, I was doing the perimeter security. So I actually had to deal with people jumping over the fence. We had thousands of people, man. It was crazy. Mobs. They would come in like 50s.
Hmm.
They would run, jump over, and whoever got in, got in. And I remember this one particular instance where there was a guy, he jumped over, and then a security guard, it was a girl, or I don't remember if it was a girl or a guy, but they were definitely smaller in size. They grabbed the guy, say, "Hey, no, you can't. Like, I'm gonna take you to the police." The guy starts beating on them, and I'm witnessing this. And we're a no touch policy when it comes to getting into altercations. But I couldn't, man. I had to run. I ran, and I kicked the guy in the rib as hard as I could. I knocked him down. We put him on the floor, and like between five of us, we dragged him. We basically carried him to the police. They arrested him. They got him, and then I went back to securing the perimeter. Well, I had this instance where another instance where this girl with a broken, it was like how you have a cast on your leg?
Yeah.
She had a broken leg. She jumped over the fence. She falls and she's limping, trying to get away. And at that point in time, I was like, you know what? I think you deserve to get in. Like, I didn't know what to do. She had a broken leg. That means that she had to hike I don't know how many miles to get up to the perimeter to be able to jump a fence with a broken leg. So that one I just gave her a pass.
She had no booty, I'm guessing.
She had no what?
She had no booty.
She had to, I don't remember, dude. I don't remember, but it
You were
was
looking at that cast, more like that ass.
yeah, that one was an experience. I mean, I got lucky in one of those places. I did
So it's funny because you keep coming up with all these these funny stories, and the more I look back on the restaurant, all I can remember is like disgusting stories.
like what?
Like there was this one night where, well, let's go. The first night I worked in the restaurant, I come in and I know nothing, so they tell me, oh, go to the back here, go to the cabinet, and there's aprons. Go put one on and grab a towel. There, it's inside the cabinet as well. So I go back there, I get the apron, I come out and start putting it on, and I'm kind of standing around because everyone seems like they're doing something.
Uh-huh.
And so finally the manager comes over to me and says, hey, the person who was supposed to be training you tonight's not coming. So it's like, okay. So what do I do? She's like, oh, just she kind of like just took me around and showed me some stuff.
Mhm.
So it's like, okay. So I went to go make iced tea the first night. I went, made some, I threw in the bag of iced tea, put the urn under it, and hit start. It's
Yep.
the only button on this machine is start. There's a start button and then there's an on and off switch.
Yeah.
Only buttons, no settings, no anything. So I hit start. I come back and iced tea is all over the floor. I don't know how. And and that night we were having the Chamber of Commerce at the restaurant. So there was 50 people standing up all around the iced tea machine. No one saying anything about it overflowing or anything. Just let it overflow. They're standing in iced tea, still not saying anything. And I'm just looking around like, what in the hell? And no one even notices. I have to say, all right, guys, you guys gotta scoot over. There's iced tea on the ground. They just kind of like look down, look at me, and then just kind of take one step forward,
they
and
just
that's it.
they just
And I was like,
continue doing what they're doing.
all right, cool. I don't know what I'm doing. You guys don't care. Cool. And so I cleaned it up, and that was my first night at the restaurant. I can't remember anything else outside of that. Just that I had no one to train me, and I still don't know why that iced tea overflowed.
But you said you had some like disgusting stories. I want to
Yeah.
hear. I want to hear one.
So there was one day we were working, and someone said that the toilet was plugged. So
Classic.
my manager went in there and looked, and he's like, he came out, and he's like, I didn't clean it. And we're like, why? He goes, it's plugged, and it's pretty plugged. So we go in there, dude. I don't know how they had a poop the size of my head, one piece, not like just like that's how much poop there was.
Oh man,
There was one piece the size of my head,
Python.
like. And so it was plugged because it couldn't go down the toilet. And so we had to take a knife to it to chop it up.
What? Like a kitchen knife?
We took a steak knife to it, and we threw the steak knife away after.
Oh man.
There was another night. It was a holiday weekend. I remember that. And I can't remember what holiday. Right in the middle of the night, super busy. Both bathrooms start overflowing. The hallway,
Oh man.
dude. There was water that was higher than my shoes, like soles. So like the sides of my feet would get wet if I were to walk in there. And the what was it? The off switch for the water was like down the hall. And I had to run through that. It was so gross.
You had to run through the black water?
Yeah.
Oh man.
And oh man, this is when I first started working there too. There was this corner. I forget what we called it. There was a name for it. There was like this wooden contraption that allowed us to put like 2 bus tubs.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of people wouldn't move it at the end of the night to clean like behind it. They would just clean in it and around it. So things would fall behind it, like
food?
Yeah, food and drinks and sauces and stuff. And so me being the new person doing the right thing, I pull it out. And I look back there, and I'm looking. I was like, "Is that a towel?" And then I started looking at it, and it starts pulsing. I was like, "What the hell is that?" Yeah, and it's pulsing, and I look, and it's like a maggot, like infested, like sauce.
Oh man. You grabbed it with your hand?
No, I didn't. I was just looking at it on the ground. And so I was like, nope. And I just took bleach and threw bleach on the ground until all that stuff dissipated onto the ground.
Oh my gosh, that's disgusting.
And mopped it up, yeah.
And were you a manager back then, or?
No, I was a busser. I like just started working there.
Oh man. Yeah, that's like one of the dirtiest, especially with food, man. Gosh, I couldn't imagine. Dude, well, at the Great Indoors, there was this time where in the ladies' restroom, I don't know if this person, she ran in there she was prairie dogging by the time she got there. But they're like, hey, somebody needs to come, and the janitors, like you said, they would come later in the day. they they're like, somebody needs to come and deal with this because client, it's during prime hour. I go over there, I open the stall, and everything is sprayed like somebody was playing paintball on the stall walls, on the back wall, everywhere. I don't know how. It was like someone threw a grenade in there and ran out. It was
Yep.
probably the most disgusting sight I had ever seen. Luckily, I didn't have to clean it. The supervisor, he's like, you know what? I'll do it. So he went in there, he hosed everything down. I mean, it's just crazy how what people can do. It's crazy what people can do with their bodies, man. That was like, it didn't even make any sense. Like, how do you even spray the side of the wall? I don't get it.
Oh, I
Um,
get it.
God, dude. There was another time I'm doing security, right? I was lucky enough to. Okay, so I was doing a double that day. So I did my first 8 hours in the morning at a rave up in Pasadena. So I'm doing a rave. I'm staying there for 14 hours. The first 8 hours, pretty uneventful. Everything, they were staging up the stage. They were sound checks, all of that kind of fun stuff. So nothing going on. On this, my second part of the shift, they divided us into different stages. I don't know if you've ever been to Nocturnal or EDC or anything like that, but you usually have like 10 DJs, like maybe like 20 DJs, 10 stages around. So at the time, I used to listen to a lot of Deadmau5. And unbeknownst to me, the paper that was given to me was for the stage where Deadmau5 was performing that night. So I'm doing back, the backstage security, and I was lucky enough to meet him. He came up. At first, I'm like, "Oh, you guys don't have any clearance," and then I realized who I was talking to. You know, he kind of just laughed it off, and I let them in, and then someone came relieved me of that post, and then I was sent in to the front of the stage to do security there. So not only did I get to listen to the concert and see this guy perform, I mean, it was like a dream come true, right? But while I'm up there, and I think that before Deadmau5 went up, it was Zoo. You remember Zoo?
No.
ZHU. He did a song called Faded. It was like one hit song. He kind of disappeared after that.
No.
No?
Uh,
Really famous song. Anyway, so I'm talking maybe midway my shift. It's probably 10 p.m. This place closes at 2. At 10 p.m., you have this crowd. At the front of the crowd, you have these two guys. They're rolling. They're rolling on some crazy drugs. They're not all there. One guy asks me for water, and then they're just talking back and forth. Well, as the night progresses, I'm just being weary. People get rowdy. They start mosh pits. I mean, it gets crazy. I look over, and this guy is literally peeing on his friend. He's just peeing on him. And the guy's looking at him, and he looks at me, and he shakes his head. He's like, yeah, that's my friend.
'cause they probably do that to each other.
I mean, gosh, dude, that was crazy. A lot of fun times being security, man. I have
And
many,
that's
many, many stories.
And this stuff opens your eyes to the real world, Marco.
Well, dude, it was I learned a lot about people, the psychology behind people, the way group thinking. You know, I realized how group thinking affects a group of people. How if one person, like the people running, like I mentioned, they were running, trying to cross over the fence to get into the concert. I mean, you
Yeah.
had a group of 50 people just jumping over. You know, that's crazy. That's kind of crazy.
Hmm.
Um, it kind of also made me realize how I no longer like big crowds. So even Black Friday, like I stopped going to Black Friday things a long time ago because of the same reason. And then, you know, finding out people are getting trampled, people are dying just to get something that was marked up to get it in a discount. You
That's
know,
only in
doesn't
the
make sense.
in those cities.
I mean, dude, it did happen in only in some certain cities, but now we're being faced with riots. I mean, we've not so much anymore, but you know, it's just this group thinking was very. I learned group thinking, the psychology of how people react. Um, it also it gave me a sense of how to be more not confident, but how to set parameters with authority. So sometimes, like in my current thing that I'm doing, you have to be very um, tough on people. You can't be so easygoing because if you know you give people an inch, they take a mile. And so I learned, you know, just this whole experience working in all these places have that I've accumulated over the years. It's brought me to a point where I feel like it's a well balanced point where
Hmm.
I know how to handle different types of situations. Um, but I suppose that one of the most important lessons that I've learned so far, just working at so many different places, like right now, we're at an all time low of jobs. There's like no jobs out there. People are getting let go still. Restaurants are
Yeah.
not up and running at full staff yet. So to the people who are in that position who don't have a job, they don't have the next move, I would suggest pick anything. Just get into something because you know it's don't just see the next thing as a job. See it as an opportunity to grow and to learn from it because you never know what life will bring later. And having these experiences, it's taught me a lot and it's made me grow in a way where I feel more prepared. I can handle more things. I can handle more pressure. I can handle more tough clients. I can handle tough employees. Management. Like if you ever want to move up in the current position that you have, well, cleaning a toilet brings a certain lesson. And when you implement that and you hold that dear to your chest in such a way that you know you appreciate the little things and even if it is a dirty job, eventually you're not going to be at that place. And then eventually you're going to be in a much better place. But hadn't you done that, you know, would you be able to make it in this new job, in this new management position? Like, like for you, Greg, if you didn't have to clean a python pile of crap with a knife, with a steak knife, would you ever have been prepared to do management duties?
Yes. I don't think they relate to each other whatsoever.
Okay, why did you do it? Why didn't somebody else do it?
um, I don't remember why. but I'm pretty sure one of the main reasons was because I was responsible to clean the restrooms that night.
So you're telling me that there was no instance where you had to do something that came of a leadership position because somebody else didn't want to do it. I had it. I had that many times.
No, I think I had a few people over the years who had worked there that had good leadership mentality.
Hmm.
Maybe some of them were not leaders in the sense of like that wasn't their role, but they still had the leadership qualities. And those people showed more leadership than others within the restaurant. And I think I learned more through them than I did through like my own circumstances there.
So I feel like maybe you didn't have the chance to explore what the point that I'm trying to make because you only worked at one place. But if you worked in multiple places, and there's a common theme. There's people who want to work. There's people who don't want to work. And at Home Depot, for instance, when I joined the night crew, I did nights. I did stocking,
Mhm.
restocking. One of the busiest stores in Southern California. We were a team of 7 people, and I learned teamwork there. These guys, the plumbing section, or the paint section. Sometimes we would get 16, 15, 16 pallets of paint, double stacked. And I was in charge of paint. I had sometimes people had to come and help. Like it was crazy. The amount of workload was insane. It was so crazy. Um, we helped each other here and there. Like sometimes we would get cast iron sinks. Cast iron sinks, they weigh like 300 pounds for one person to stack it. It's nearly impossible. We would
Yeah.
help each other. So I learned a lot of teamwork, but it also came with a lot of leadership. Like the leader there, they were very pro teamwork. So I learned that through them. So I'm saying maybe you learned the lesson, you just didn't learn it the same way, or you didn't have the chance to learn it in other aspects.
Yeah.
Um, but there were certain there. I mean, now there are times where I've had to be somewhat of a leader with tenants. With sometimes we have difficult things, like people lost a lot of their jobs. They don't know what to do, and I have to mitigate the damage of not having rent income, but also these people's livelihoods are being affected. So I've had to mitigate that in both ways for the owner and for the tenants as a
Yeah.
family. So if I never experienced everything that I went through leading up to this point, I don't think that I would have been prepared for it. And that's what I meant. I'm sure, when I asked you, hadn't you gone through those experiences? I mean, you were a manager for a reason, not because you got lucky. You were a manager for a reason. They didn't just pick you because you were doing the job. They picked you because one, you probably have leadership, which I know you do. Um, you had the morals. You cared about the customers. Like you said, sometimes people come in, clocked out. And that's it. They're just there to do the job. That's it. They're not there to make sure that the place is running smoothly. They're not there to make sure that everyone's having a good time, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I feel like it's important. And I would suggest if you've only had a couple jobs, go get more. Go get a second job. Go get a third job because the opportunities will present themselves. In my experience, having worked, gosh, upwards of like seven, maybe, I mean, some unofficial jobs. I mean, I did flooring, painting with my brothers. I've done a lot of things, and there's one common thing. It's the accountability, the caring about the job, and then, if faced with uncertainty, the leadership the leadership mentality um, that you have will help you in those tough times, and it's a work in progress. Something that my current mentor keeps telling me is that he believes that people need to suffer more. It's the philosophy of learned experience through emotional pain that gets you to the next level. Um, a lot of us, I know me myself, I've been reading a lot of books. I've been trying to grow as a person, trying to be better every day. But it's, the life experience that I have is almost, it's priceless. Like I wouldn't be able to get the same knowledge and understanding of life through a book, um, as I did from what I've done in the past, just working. The work that I've done has allowed me to grow. I don't know if you feel the same. Like, what's your experience? Like,
Well,
yeah, what's your experience with that?
sure. The the experience of what you've done allows you to. I don't know. I always feel like it just allows you to not care the next time it happens. So like if someone comes in yelling at you that you didn't give them the right thing, you feel like you made a mistake. And then they come in and yell at you and do the same thing again, and you know you did it right this time, then you just kind of ignore it. And then they come in again, they yell at you again, you did this wrong. You just you know how to deal with it. It's not even hard. And you
Exactly.
move
So you know
on.
how to deal with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cuz it's like there's always tables in restaurants that people you can tell when they walk in you don't want to serve them.
Hmm.
And I usually try to take those tables.
The people don't want to serve.
Yeah,
Why?
because one, I never switch tables with them. I just take an extra table. So one, that table's gonna be rude and doesn't want anyone around, and it's just gonna be a dick to everyone. Why not take them and just let them be? You get an extra $2 or $3 as a tip at the end of the day. I just got extra money.
So you know how to handle that
Thanks.
situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so it's people worry too much. I always try to tell people, you're probably never gonna see these people again when they walk out that door. So
Yeah, that's very true.
I just kind of say whatever, just get them what they want and move on. If they're being if they're being too picky or anything like that, then you can either ignore it or just fix it. I
Yeah.
mean, nothing else to do. If they say, "Oh, you didn't give me ketchup," you give them ketchup, and that's it. If they continue to complain about something else, then the second part is you say, "Okay, so this is your toast is not toast enough. Okay, before I walk away, tell me what else is wrong. Let me fix everything at once." They don't tell you anything else is wrong. You fix their toast. You bring them whatever the other issue was, and you turn around and you walk away. That's it. Because now they can't complain anymore.
Yeah. You know, I
People
was gonna.
don't people don't figure out all the complaints before trying to fix one thing, and then more complaints just keep piling up. So when you knock out all the complaints in one swoop, there's nothing they can complain about anymore.
I mean, I think that's just life in general. Like things are always gonna happen,
Yeah.
and we're seeing that right now. Things are always gonna happen. So being prepared to be unprepared is one of the best things that I've learned in what I'm doing now. Like we didn't know all this was going to happen, you know, this whole pandemic thing. We didn't know it was going to affect the economy in such a way. We literally were just kind of just still going day by day. We
Yeah.
don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So
Nah.
I'm not even expecting anything. I'm not expecting for it to get better. I'm just learning as it goes. And then if it ever happens again, like you said, now we know how to handle it, you know?
Yep.
Um, well, I mean, I can go on and on and on and on about stories. Um, is there anything that you want to talk about? Anything in particular to the jobs? Maybe like a time where you threw out a client. Did you ever do that in the restaurant business?
Uh, I did, but it was not. It was a health issue because the restaurant had peanuts on the floor. So
Yeah.
if someone would come in and be like, "Oh, there's peanuts. I have an allergy," you ask them, "How bad's the allergy?" And like, this guy is like, "Oh yeah, I can die if I get peanuts. If I ingest peanuts." So I just grabbed the guy and pushed him outside, and then told him like, "There's peanuts in the air. You probably just you probably just breathe in some peanut dust." Like, but outside of that, sorry, there was one time where this guy and girl, they were eating. They gave me their card. The card didn't work to pay for their food, and they started fighting each other and like, "Oh, you're supposed to grab the money," and so they're like, the lady told me, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll get you next time." I was like, "What the hell you mean you'll get me next time?"
They said we'll get you next time.
Yeah.
What? Did you make
And
them do
so,
dishes or what?
well, my boss at the time made me sit down next to, I think it was the girl, or she said just stand there until they give you some form of payment. And so I stood there, and she was getting all crazy with the guy and started blaming him for it, and so he left, and she stayed there. So I sat down on the bench next to her so she couldn't leave, and sitting there, it's like 45 minutes later, and the guy finally shows back up after she's like trying to call him and he doesn't pick up. And he comes in and finally pays for the food, and she's getting all crazy with us. And it's like, fool, you should have your money in order. You should know you're going somewhere where you gotta pay for food.
Were they a young couple?
No, not really.
No.
They were old. Nah.
Dang, dude. Did you ever have anyone dine and dash?
Not until recently, actually. It was the end of the night. It was these two kids. Um, I didn't necessarily think anything weird about them. they they looked a little like they looked like they would have like carved something into the bathroom stall, but like they didn't look dangerous in any way, or
Mm-hmm.
they just looked like hooligans.
Yeah.
And they hung out and they were eating. They were kind of just hanging out all night, and they were eating their food, and they still had some food. They'd pick at their food, so like they were eating. Coming to the end of the night, we're closed, just waiting on them to pay, and all the employees are in the back of the restaurant now. And anytime someone's still in the building and I like count money or any of that,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I always stare at the people, or at least I watch the people while I count.
Right.
And so I I remember I was putting the money away, so I looked down and I could hear like this really loud laughing and running, and I was like, "What the hell?" So I look up, and it was the two guys that were running to the front door, and I just pushed the door open and took off running.
How much was your bill? Do you remember?
It was probably like anywhere from like 30 to $60.
Classic dine and dash. I
So,
always wanted to do that, but I never did. Just,
uh,
you know, it was just a silly thought I always had. Um, dude, loss prevention, man. I had to deal with a, a lot of stuff. MPU, people were trying to take things that didn't belong to them. Did give you like an old receipt, stuff like that. At Home Depot though, we were in Costa Mesa, so Costa Mesa at the time had a lot of like homeless, a lot of you know, like crackheads, people who were just on drugs all day. I remember this is how crazy it was, dude. I remember I'm stocking up a shelf. I'm on the ladder. I'm
uh-huh.
stocking up a shelf, and I'm not that I'm being quiet. I'm just doing my thing, right?
Yeah.
And this guy comes around the corner. He like looks around, drops his backpack, and starts putting like locks into his backpack. And I'm talking about 20 locks. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, what the heck? Like, what is this guy doing? And I'm on my cell. I'm calling the LP guys, the loss prevention guys. I'm like, hey, some guy is just stuffing their backpack with a bunch of things. Sure enough, he doesn't see me, dude. He doesn't see me at all. He starts walking down to the end of the hall. I get down the ladder. I follow him to the door, and then we catch him at the end. And it was crazy. I mean, this is just a normal Monday for you. Um, I've had a lot of instances like that where people were just coming in to try to steal something and leave. But it was typical of this place. It attracts a lot of these type of people.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, man. I mean, gosh, yeah. Like I said, we can go on and on and on and on about this. Um, yeah. I mean, those are the good and important lessons that I've learned so far. Many that I probably forgot to mention. Um, yeah. Do you have anything else, Greg? Or
No, not with jobs. Haven't
no?
had anything outside of that.
What's your next move?
I don't even know yet. I gotta start working again. And I was actually probably gonna start this next weekend, but I don't know if I'm gonna be able to.
Okay. Well, what
But
like maybe you can give us an update next week.
yeah.
Um. So yeah, I guess we'll call it a day. Um, I think we had a pretty long conversation. Um, we can. I think we're gonna have some guests on Wednesday, which I'll let you know off the air, and then we have a few guests lined up for July for everybody who's listening. I just want to thank you guys for sticking with us during these tough times. We're just trying to share our experience with you guys. Some of the lessons that we've learned so far. Like I said, I feel like I have a lot that I missed, but we will have plenty of time to talk about them in the future.
Hmm.
And again, I just want to thank you guys for joining us on today's podcast. And if you don't already know, you can listen to us. You can go back and listen to this podcast on every platform, including Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, um, i iTunes, everywhere. We're literally on every platform now. If you feel like you missed something, you want to go back, feel free to join us there. It'll probably drop either later tonight or tomorrow morning. Usually it's about a 24-hour turnaround. And don't forget to leave a comment. Why don't you guys drop off some comments, put some comments of maybe some of your work experience, anything you found useful on this podcast. Like, subscribe, hit the bell so you can get notified when we go live next time. Is there anything that you want to add, Greg?
No, you nailed all of them. Like, subscribe, hit the bell.
Okay. So now we're just going to do the excerpt of Heart of a Buddha to close today's podcast. Hope you guys have a good Sunday. We'll see you guys later in the week. We already have perfect compassion, perfect wisdom, perfect joy. We only need to settle our minds so they can arise from deep within us. All right, Greg, I'll talk to you later, man. Have a good one.
Have a good one,
Bye,
guys.
everybody.